3, 2, 1, go. Ready.
Steady. Go. That's what they say on Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig?
Do you know Peppa Pig?
I am fortunate enough not to know Peppa Pig.
Oh, well, I think you should count yourself unfortunate. Peppa Pig is a very nice, lovely cartoon from Great Britain. That's all about these different animals. They live in a town together. They go to school together. But, apparently they don't say ready, set, go when it's race time. They say ready, steady, go. And
because it's a pig. Pigs have to be kind of steady. They have no what ligament that attaches in their neck to keep their head steady. So they have to be steady, I think.
I think you're just being culturally inappropriate, insensitive.
And Peppa probably is not much of a runner. So why are we talking about Peppa?
Well, I don't know. You said 1, 2, 3, go.
And that set you off.
Whatever.
All right, guys. Well, today we are talking with Dr. Naomi Albertson. She was fantastic having her in, talking in this first part about recovery more.
Yeah, it was super awesome to, I feel the things that I feel when I'm trying to recover from our workout yesterday. Thank you so much, Matthew. And so to hear some of the science behind recovery that Dr. Albertson gave us, to hear her views on some different parts of recovery, like sleep, some really surprising things came out of research that I don't think are widely known.
Yeah, on recovery, it was funny yesterday because you said, I just recovered from our last session. You spent the whole weekend recovering, and you did recover. And then I said, okay, well, let's hit it again. And you're like, Matthew! And we hit it again.
It's just wrong.
It is. So who is Dr. Albertson, you might be wondering? Well, she is a sports medicine, and emergency, non-emergency injuries are kind of her specialty, overuse injuries, concussion management, actually, too, which in a future podcast we'll have to get her talking a little bit about that. There's an athlete that I was just talking to the other day, got kicked in the head in the pool while she was swimming. Right. Actually, it was when we were at Bam Camp. And so I had advised her to consult with Dr. Albertson on that. But so she is certainly quite the polymath when it comes to being a doctor. She knows a lot more about nutrition, about training than most doctors. I've been working with her for, I would say at least 10 years now. And we've, the day that she came into the facility, it was surprising to me to even meet her in person because I knew one of the athletes that I was coaching was seeing her for her concussion, but Dr. Albertson just wanted to see the type of training she was doing, and she was just there to really observe, and I was impressed by that. I mean, how many doctors show up to an athlete's training?
That's somebody who cares, really cares about their clients and their athletes, and also is humble enough to say, hey, wait, I could come in here and learn something and be able to ask questions and dig deeper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Dr. Albertson talked today quite a bit about recovery and what we can do to maximize recovery. So I think you guys can really get a lot out of this episode. I mean, hopefully you get a lot of every episode, but this time it's from a doctor. Okay, so it's actually science-based. I do make up a lot of stuff, and then I don't really know, where it's coming from, and it just sounds good. No, I really don't do that, guys. But I love to get a doctor's perspective on things, and especially, again, with her background. She was a competitive gymnast when she was younger. Her passion is in sports performance, so she's quite the...
She's the real deal.
She's the real deal. So there you go. Listen to the real deal, Dr. Nye. Without further ado... People say that too much, but...
Let's give just a tiny bit of ado here. Now, you just said Dr. Nye. But her name is Dr. Naomi Albertson.
Yes, and her product is Dr. Nye's, which that's got calcium and creatine, vitamin D3, no crazy proprietary blends in there, and this is not something that we are paid to talk about. It's just actually something that I really like to use myself. I believe in it. And we have been working together a long time. I trust her. So we talked a little bit about the supplement, but what I love about her is that she's educating first. She's always educating everyone about what they can do for their health and their fitness and longevity, those things. And then, oh, by the way, this is also something you can take if you're interested, but she doesn't sell her product, if you know what I mean.
It's not a hard sale, no.
No, and I don't have sponsors. I'm not going to have sponsors. So just know that this is just something that we wanted to talk about because I think that when it comes to supplements, it's something you can trust. And so that's why we talked about it. But regardless of whether or not you take supplements or decide to check out Dr. Nye's, it's just, I think, good information for recovery to listen to. And that's the most important thing. We're going to listen in on how we can improve recovery with better sleeping hygiene.
Sounds good.
Yeah, man. Welcome back, everyone. This is Matt Pendola. I'm your hostess with the mostest with the Relative Run Readiness podcast, along with Mr. Chad Sweet. Chad, how we doing today?
Oh, I'm all right.
That's not exciting at all. Let's go over to Naomi and find out how all right she is. Dr. Naomi Albertson, we gave a little bit of a introduction for her, and she's one of a specialist that I have worked with for several years right now. She's in to talk to us to help to educate us a little bit more on some of the science behind the training when it comes to recovery for runners, and we're just so lucky to have Naomi with us. How are we today, Naomi?
I'm great. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I feel like everyone asks that, but do you really mean it? All right. Do you really care how I am, Naomi?
I do, actually.
She cares how you're recovering. Are you recovered?
Exactly
That's
right.
what she cares about.
I'm under recovered. I'll be honest with you. We're going to talk about this in the podcast quite a bit, but hey, listen, I got here this morning at 4:30 in the morning, which I love getting to the facility early. I can knock out some stuff. I actually worked with a couple athletes already, that sort of thing. But it's hard to get enough sleep in. We're going to be talking about that. So am I under recovered today? Yeah, probably a little bit. And I'll talk more about how I plan on recovering for my next quality session day that I'm going to do later on this week. I have a little bit of a strategy to that. I'm not saying it's a good one, but it works for now, right? So Dr. Nye, you are on the podcast because we want to learn from you. We want to find out what you really think about recovery patterns, how they work, and we're going to start off with sleep. So I just admitted that, last night I got 6.5 hours of sleep, and I'm wondering if I got 6.5 hours of sleep last night, but then tonight I plan on getting more like 8.5 hours of sleep. It's kind of how my schedule goes during the week. I can sleep in a little bit longer tomorrow and not sleep in. I can go to bed earlier tonight, so I'll get in a little bit more sleep tonight. Does that work? Can I catch up with sleep if I average 8 hours a night, but not necessarily get 8 hours each night? How does that work?
That's a great question. So, and you're focusing on 8 hours, which is really interesting because some of the research is actually suggesting more, like 10 to 12. And as you know, like some of the Division I college athletes now are required to go to bed at a specific time. They would actually lose scholarship money if they're not getting adequate sleep.
Oh, my word.
So there's really good research. There's a lot of research coming out of Stanford University recently about sleep, and I think they've kind of led the way with their basketball team as well regarding sleep and sleep recovery. So that being said, I mean, I think, 8 is the minimum. It's a great question. Like, can you sleep 6 one night and 12 another and kind of, find an average? Probably. Sleep is one of those things that you're probably running into, Matt, with some of the Olympians too, who are traveling all over the world and competing. And many teams will actually use sleep to their own advantage. So like they will, in the Olympics down in South America, the U.S. swimmers, for example, had their events pretty much in the middle of the night for them, which was specific by design to try to wreck their recovery and their performance. So
that's underhanded.
It
Sneaky.
sure is underhanded, but man, it works. And, and so a lot of these athletes really, they really do need to dial in that sleep. They need to figure out how they're going to sleep pre-event and, following event for recovery. But I mean, it's critical, sleep, not only duration, but quality.
Yeah, that's a sneaky little equation they use there. When I worked with a professional boxer, and his event was going to be at 10 o'clock at night in Vegas. So we met at the facility at 10 o'clock at night to train then to get him used to that.
Right.
And he purposely adjusted his sleep patterns around that, because it's hard to go to sleep after you've been working that hard. And so we had to completely adjust his sleeping patterns and try to take a nap in the middle of the day, that sort of thing. So really important that you kind of get wired up for something like that. But what I was thinking of when you were talking is just with sleeping patterns and getting to bed on time, they have like sleep police now, right? For these athletes that you were talking about. And they did find that, of course, they perform better. What I thought was really interesting, I'm getting into the world of ultra running a little bit more. Not that I've done a lot just on my own. I've been kind of building up to be able to do my first real 50-mile race in the mountains. But this is where I was listening to an ultra runner who actually had a specialist for recovery on his team. And it was like, gobble down your food as soon as you get done running for the day, because he was doing a multi-day race, and get to sleep. I mean, that was like, she was the police on that. And it's, you have 5 minutes to eat, and then you need to start winding down. You need to do some breathing drills, and you need to do a little bit of meditation, and then get yourself to sleep.
Right.
So he testified that his performance was at its peak in that multi-stage event because of this sleep police kind of pattern that he had there. Pretty interesting.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would say too that, the medical information about, sleep has changed how medicine is practiced now, right? We know that mistakes are made when you're not sleeping. And obviously that neurocognitive effect is also affecting your muscle performance and everything else. And so, now, I mean, residency has changed significantly so that, residents have to have a certain amount of sleep between, shifts in the hospital for the same reason. It's performance.
Listen, I want to ask the question that everyone else at home is asking. Who has time to sleep 12 hours a day? Who can do that? Do we need to revamp the whole society? We got to change working. We got to change school.
Well, and that's where I think we'll talk a little bit more about with nutrition and training, how I think we can improve those things a lot more. Specifically, too, I think with the training, where we have to be realistic about where we're at, because we're not full-time professional athletes for the most part.
Right.
There's some people that may be doing that, but I know that with running a business and being a father and a husband, all of that means that I don't get to take a nap in the middle of the day. It's not going to happen, and I'm never going to get 12 hours of sleep. Does that mean that I need to scale back some of the training that I do? I think that's about training smarter than harder and getting more out of it. So I go more of the minimal effective dosing principle there. Whereas, of course, elite athletes, the difference is we should not train like them unless we are where they're at, specifically because that is their job to recover. And they have their massage therapists stop by, and they have their experts that surround them and help them with their nutrition, et cetera. They have their coaches that program in the right amount of dosing at the right time. But these principles only work, I think, if that is your full-time job. So we'll get into talking about how we can make this work for the rest of us mere mortals, right?
Right.
But with somebody like Chad here, he's been now training with me, he started to work out again once he came on full time as one of the partners in our Relative Run Readiness program. And because of that, we know that he needs to really work on a little bit more recovery so he can respond from that training. But it doesn't always work out perfectly. He has some jackass calling him up at 10 o'clock at night saying, "Hey, did you get those video links done yet? Because I actually need them for tomorrow." Oh wait, that's me. But that's part of the equation. And again, running a business isn't always just black and white. You don't always get to connect the dots as perfectly as you would like. It doesn't always go between 9 and 5.
But I think, too, to come back to your question, Chad, of like, can anybody really sleep 12 hours a day? No, unless it's your full-time job, right? But that being said, like, getting adequate and high quality sleep as best you can when, in order to recover, absolutely has shown, that it improves performance. And I think it does, beg the question of, like you said, school. What about school? During this pandemic, it's been really interesting. I can tell you my 12-year-old who seems to be growing like every single day, he is absolutely benefiting from the fact that every other day he gets to sleep in. Absolutely. And so, should we reconsider as a society, changing, like, when does school start? When does that day end? Yeah. These things have been looked at in different societies, different countries, and absolutely the performance, whether it's your job or your sport, improves with improved sleep.
Or school, whether it's school, job,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and well, let's take, for example, though, we all have, I have one kid. You, Chad, you have 4, right? 4 kids?
4 of them.
Man, that's a lot. And then, Naomi, you have 2 kids.
I do.
So, I'll start off with my reality, and that was that Mia was 2 months premature when she was born. Now, she's 9 now. I think I just sort of, caught up with my sleep since that first year was rough in the best way possible, but it was rough. And then I also I made the decision that I wasn't going to compete on a national level for a while. And I think really honestly, I'm probably going to do it in a couple years from now where I'm really trying to peak out as a master competitor. But I made that decision in part because I was hitting my bike session at 4:30 in the morning, coming home so that I could spend time with Mia before I took off for the rest of the day. And I was too tired to enjoy it, right? And especially as she got older and wanted to run around and have me chase her, mm-hmm. I needed the energy for that. So I made that choice. But my recovery clearly was not optimal with these new patterns that were kind of thrown into my life. And there's no real book on it that says, hey, you're going to be a daddy now. This is how you do it. And I don't think if that book existed, I don't think I would even read it because it's different for everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But like with you, Chad, I think because you have the youngest out of all of us, you have a 2-year-old. And that's got to be, I know you plan pretty much your whole day around your 2-year-old, right?
Yeah, and most of that is planning around sleep, actually, too. Mm-hmm. I put her down for naps, and for good or bad, we got into the habit that I lay with her. I don't just like put her down and leave her and walk away. And I actually quite enjoy that time, that intimate time spent putting her to sleep. And then, maybe I'll catch 5 minutes myself. Sometimes it feels like 5 hours. And that's fantastic. And then, go away and wait for her to wake up. And then I'm already planning, okay, how can I get her down for bedtime? And what time is that actually really going to be? Right. Not only with our 2-year-old, but, we've got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old that are still in the house. And their schedules also impact the baby's schedule and also impact my wife's schedule and my schedule. And yeah, it's all quite a funny little pinball universe that happens.
But isn't it funny? Like, as parents, and of course, I've taken care of lots of pediatric patients over the years and babies as well. And learning those sleep habits is critical for development. right? And I mean, it's critical for us too. It's just we pay less attention to it as we get older, right? We kind of sacrifice sleep for work or for other activities.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem productive. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's what at least our current culture and society is based on, is productivity.
Exactly. But obviously, I mean, just like you're saying with your daughter, like, having that, if like you were saying at the beginning, Matt, like if you can't sleep, 8 hours one day, like should you try and get in a cat nap? Yeah, why not? Right? Of course, that's going to improve your productivity. It's of course going to improve your neurocognitive state. It's of course going to improve your performance. So why not, right? Throw in that 5-minute nap, throw in a 10-minute nap if you can't get a full 8.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm going to bring up just on my mind right now what probably a lot of people deal with, but I know that I fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole where I was getting in a cup of coffee in the morning, helping me to wake up. And then as time went on and I was having more and more sporadic sleep, especially when in those developmental years for Mia, when I was still had to be sort of on it during my day. I had to be, cognitive. I had to be able to be the best coach possible, but that meant more caffeine. And then the more caffeine I took in, the harder it was for me to go to bed even when I was tired. And so I just think that's something I would like to ask you about, Naomi, a little bit more, because I think this is a common problem that caffeine is the most probably abused stimulant, even though it's considered to be, well, of course, it's a legal stimulant and it's considered to be safe enough. But boy, I tell you, I was taking in probably a good 600 milligrams of caffeine a day at one point just to get through the day. And then it just kind of steamrolls from there. And I eventually just bit the bullet and said, okay, I've got to get my sleep patterns back. I've got to just go without caffeine and then bring back in that cup of coffee, which, quite honestly, I have right now. But I do cut myself off and say, okay, it's noon. Now it's time to switch over to caffeine-free tea or something. And those habits are hard to break. But how much do you deal with that as a doctor working with people who are, trying to reach their goals and trying to be healthy, but at the same time maybe doing some things that aren't so healthy for their recovery?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, like you're describing, just fatigue throughout the day, trying to, balance a lot of different balls at once. The pandemic has thrown all sorts of new roles at all of us. I think, a lot of people who had been, invested in their health are doing exactly that, Matt. And they're, well, shoot, I need to get 2 more hours out of this day, so I'm going to have another cup of coffee. The flip side of that is then they can't go to sleep. So what do? Have a glass of wine. Right?
Yep.
Or 2. And then you get into that slippery slope of how alcohol really messes with your sleep patterns as well. And your, respirations during sleep and your quality of sleep and everything else, and actually wakes you up often several hours later. So, I mean, I think, yes, it's critical. We have to think about what we're putting in our system to, maximize performance, but also to maximize the quality of our sleep and the, ability to sleep.
Well, you just said the quality of sleep too, because I had surgery a few months back now, and I dealt with for most of my life, I was a very heavy snorer, right? And I would actually wake up gasping for air because I was basically suffocating. And this went on for years and years and years. And then finally I went to go see an ENT, and he said, yeah, you could definitely benefit from surgery. And it was quite intensive. The surgery was a lot. I had a lot done at once, a lot of tissue removed. I think 40% of my tissues, which is a lot. And, basically I said, why was I all of a sudden now it's just being so evident that I need this? He said, well, you needed it 20 years ago. It's just you didn't feel it as much because you were 20 years younger. And that, of course, makes complete sense. But now that I've had the surgery, man, I mean, I don't snore anymore. I sleep through the night. The sleep is deep, and I dream more than ever. I can tell I've gotten good quality sleep. And so that's just something about quality too. I wonder how many people are even trying to get that 8 hours of sleep a night, but how good is that 8 hours of sleep, right? And these sleeping patterns are so important to be able to, I think, put yourself into a cycle that you can consistently do. So that's where I start to think about waking up every morning at the same time. Now, when I go to bed, again, not always when I need to go to bed, but it seems like when I do have maybe one night where I sleep for even sometimes it's down to 5.5 hours. So I'm okay for that day. But then that night, if I don't get to sleep early, if I don't get more sleep in, then that next day can be pretty rough. And I'm like, what do you want? What do you want? Give me my coffee. So, just what's your...
I think that's a good question, though. Like, is it more important to go to bed at the same time every night, or is it more important to get up at the same time every day?
Yeah, it's wake time is what we focus on more than anything. I think...
That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
You're surprised that I'm right? That's what you're surprised with. I already know.
Wake time is really important for normal circadian rhythms. And, we see it with patients who've had head injuries who are really struggling with sleep. But if we can get them to follow that normal same wake time, they often will convert right back into normal sleep patterns. It's incredibly helpful. The bedtime can be a little bit trickier, right? I mean, and especially like Matt mentioned, if you just drank a whole bunch of stimulants, you're not going to bed, right? And or if you did a hard workout right before bed, if you have a lot on your mind from work or for whatever reason, right? Your bedtime may fluctuate a little bit. Now with kids, it's a little easier to control bedtime because we're the ones planning their activities. We're the ones planning their, when they're eating, what they're doing after, in the evening. But
my kids tell me when they go to bed. That's not my choice.
Right. And I think too, in your older kids, like in your high schoolers, a lot of them are staying up late to do homework, but they still have to get up the same time to go to school, right? And so I think for adults, for people who are actively exercising, it's less important, exactly when that bedtime is. Like, it does not have to be exactly 9:30 or 10 or whatever. It can fluctuate a little bit, but going after that same wake time makes a difference in how your brain functions.
Yeah, I think that works well. I found it works well for me. And there are a couple of things out there that talk about this. I think it's Why We Sleep is I think the name of the book that I read a couple of years back, and that helped me with my sleep hygiene a little bit more. And when I say sleep hygiene, I don't always do this, but I'm pretty good about doing this most nights, where I will read a real book, not a Kindle or something, but an actual book, for about a half an hour or so, and then I'm tired and I want to go to sleep. Yep. And so that's something that I try to commit to, where I even though do my reading downstairs, and I read, and then I feel tired. I go upstairs, I go to bed, because I try to make going to bed the bed for sleeping. Okay, my little something on the side, but sleeping mainly. And sorry, Aaron. But basically, look, it's true. It's I think that when you start watching TV in bed, and even potentially, I think reading in bed was a little bit distracting for me too. I think I trained myself that when my head hits the pillow, now it's time to go to sleep. Yep. And I think that started to work for me when even though I was reading, to read downstairs and then go to bed. Any thoughts on that, you guys? Yeah. What you've experienced there?
I mean, I think, there's very good research that shows that having your room be dark, quiet, if you're somebody who constantly is thinking about stuff and just can't quiet that down, playing some, babbling brook kind of music in the background or that sort of thing can be helpful for some people, some white noise. Making it cool in your bedroom matters. Making your feet cool matters. So, don't go to sleep with wool socks on. It definitely impacts your sleep quality, which is kind of interesting.
Wait, but Sleep Number Bed is now touting that they can warm your feet for you.
Right. Isn't that funny?
But that's not good, is what you're saying.
It's probably not good for sleep quality. Some, people like to feel warm and comfortable, obviously, but, many people poke their feet out the bottom of their covers to keep them cool so that they can fall asleep a little bit easier.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I think, like you've done, Matt, like making your bed where you sleep. So not doing other stuff in bed, right outside of what you mentioned.
Mainly,
but like, not watching TV, not watching, looking at your phone, your computers, and then just that. I mean, the blue light issues with computer screens are real. And, I always ask my patients, like, do you remember the company Blue Blockers? Remember, like, way back in the 80s and early 90s? Well, they went out of business because people were falling asleep at the wheel, right? So those blocking that blue light really does get your brain, wave activity to quiet down and allow you to get into that normal circadian rhythm for sleep. So, if you are going to be on a screen before bedtime, getting a pair of glasses that blocks the blue light from the screen can be really helpful. Some of the newer screens actually have that ability as a function on the screen to just turn off the blue light.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's really good. We're going to have a part 2 here, guys, where we're going to talk about more nutrition and training. And Dr. Albertson is going to be doing that with us. So listen to part 2. But before we come off this podcast, Naomi, do want to give you an opportunity to talk just a little bit about your product, Dr. Nyes, and why the heck would I use Dr. Nyes, Naomi? What the heck is Dr. Nyes?
No problem. So Dr. Nyes OC2 is a natural product that was created both for bone and muscle support. So for anybody who's active, who's doing regular exercise, who's older than the age of about 35, we think that giving your body adequate supplement to allow for improved recovery and improved muscle strength and bone health is really critical. So that's what it is.
Yeah, guys, I started using Dr. Nyes myself and just really noticed a big difference in my strength and also in recovery. And I will explain a little bit more how that works. What I love about Naomi, though, is she doesn't sell her product. She gives good information, and from there you can make decisions. I don't take any sponsorships with this show, and I don't plan to. I mean, unless somebody's got some major money, then I will totally sell out. But no, guys, I do believe in Dr. Albertson. So when she came up with this product, I knew it was something that was well thought out, that the science was behind it. And you look at vitamin D3, and you look at calcium, you look at creatine. These are all things that I know I can benefit from, especially as I get older. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but for sure, check out her product. You can see it in the show notes. And until next time, when we're talking about nutrition and training, you guys take care of you, get good sleep, get good recovery, and be good.
Good night, everybody.